Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding something incredibly dark and fascinating. We're looking at a grim philosophical fable that completely tears apart the eternal conflict between cosmic order and chaotic absurdity. It's a story that asks some seriously heavy questions about human existence, individual freedom, and those mental cages we all tend to build for ourselves. We'll be looking at the brutal struggle between the raw, untamed forces of the void and the rigid, mechanical attempts to impose logic right on top of it.
Let's kick things off with this central tension between searching for meaning and facing the raw, terrifying absurdity of the void. Think about the phrase, the beauty of a miracle that has no meaning. Kind of a mind-bender, right? In our day-to-day lives, we desperately want things to make sense. We crave purpose. But this story drops us into a universe defined by infinite motion and absolutely zero inherent purpose. It literally forces us to ask, what actually happens when you strip away our comforting illusions of order and just stare directly into the meaningless beauty of the cosmos?
Which leads us straight into the central question of the so-called cynical test. Can any soul actually survive the void without a rigid logical cage to protect it? Honestly, it's a terrifying thought. If you completely surrender to the chaotic nature of reality, do you finally achieve true cosmic freedom, or do you just completely lose yourself? This exact battleground, the safety of our mental cages versus the unbinding power of total absurdity, is exactly where our characters find themselves standing.
Part 1. The Broth of Chaos, Embracing the Void. Right in the middle of this humming kinetic energy and environment completely ruled by the spirit of becoming, we meet two key figures, Sinus and the Wit. They're standing literally in the wreckage of the immutable architecture, so all the old, unchangeable rules of reality completely collapsed around them. The heavy, frozen silence is just gone, and they're left debating the finality of their grim reality, in the ruins of the way things used to be.
Now, Sinnos has already made his choice. His voice is practically vibrating with the raw hunger of the void. He makes this intense argument that fully accepting chaos is absolutely the only way to move beyond the tomb of his own making. To him, a rigid, logical cage isn't a shelter, it's a prison. He firmly believes that true liberation means leaning directly into the raw, consuming hunger of a meaningless universe. It's an almost terrifying level of acceptance.
Part 2. Relics of Rigid Logic. The Gasket Rises.
But right as Sinnos is swaying in his perpetual grave dance, totally embracing this chaotic state, the ruins throw a massive curveball. A dormant mechanical relic, known as the Apollonian Gasket, suddenly rises up from a hidden chamber to disrupt the chaotic broth. And the name, Apollonian, is huge here, representing order, reason, and logic. This thing is a relic from a grim mental fortress, originally built as a tool of static control to lock away cosmic secrets. So just when chaos seems to be winning, this ancient machine of rigid, unyielding logic wakes up to forcefully shut down the expanding absurdity.
And it does this by acting as a conduit for something incredibly destructive. It channels the creed of the cosmic mind, which transforms from mere disappearing ink into this fluxing, aggressive entity that starts reciting a creed of negation. By consuming forbidden knowledge, this creed of negation forcefully collapses logic. It's essentially fighting the void by trying to delete the absurdity altogether, desperately trying to enforce a sterile, dead kind of order.
Part 3. The Shattered Mind Awakens. A Dark Synthesis.
Because it consumed that forbidden knowledge, the cosmic mind stabilizes into something truly terrifying, the shattered mind. Emerging from the remnants of the old, immutable master architecture, this new entity claims to see the collective despair of everyone who aligned with chaos but failed to survive what's called the logic of the crucible. It's basically a horrific monument made entirely out of the broken minds of those who couldn't handle the void.
What's absolutely fascinating here is that the shattered mind acts as a dark reflection of Sinnos. See, Sinnos successfully integrated with his crimson mask, meaning he actually found a genuine morbid joy in the blood-slicked chaos. He thrived in it. But the shattered mind, it represents the catastrophic failure of that exact integration. It shows us exactly what happens to those who tried to embrace the creed of the cosmic mind, but instead of finding the unbinding power of the absurd, only experienced the slow, colorful death of their logic. It's the ultimate tragic consequence of staring into the abyss and blinking.
Part 4. Symbols of the Struggle. Runes versus Logic.
This massive ideological clash physically manifests on our next figure, the architect. Vibrant red runes start violently pulsing on their robes in direct response to the shattered mind. These runes are the language of the all-consuming maw, and symbolically, they represent a fiery, passionate struggle against fading logic. It's an incredible contrast. You literally have the fierce, chaotic expression of the red runes battling head-to-head against the internal logic of the shattered mind, which operates on this cold, stabilizing frequency, a frozen cage of pure despair.
Part 5. Wit versus the Architect. Cosmic Freedom. Now let's look at how the Wit and the Architect view individual cosmic freedom, because they are polar opposites. The Wit completely weaponizes humor. For him, laughter is literally a jagged blade used to peel away the gilded cages of logic like dead skin. It's active, it's destructive, and it mercilessly mocks the very idea of order. The Architect, however, takes a totally different path. The Architect simply wants to become a submissive witness to the void. Instead of fighting or mocking the absurdity, their goal is to completely surrender to it through a grave dance, just observing this meaningless miracle without getting in the way.
But of course, there's a huge problem. The shattered mind stands as a final, monumental obstacle to the Architect's quest. Acting as this twisted new form of static control, it threatens to trap the Architect forever, completely blocking them from ever truly becoming that submissive witness. It absolutely demands structure, even if that structure is forged out of collective despair.
Part 6. The Final Confrontation. The Surreal Playhouse.
So the stage of this surreal playhouse is perfectly set. As the final confrontation between chaos and order unfolds, the Wit stands by, but his influence completely changes how we view the scene. Because he previously used laughter as a weapon to destroy gilded cages, he exposes the absolute absurdity of this standoff. He shows us that, sure, the old rigid architecture is gone, but it's just being replaced by a horrific new cage, one built of despair and fluxing knowledge trying to reimpose order. It's a harsh reminder that when we tear down our old cages, the universe might just build darker ones if we take them too seriously.
And that leaves us with one final, haunting question about the true cost of facing the shattered mind. Is the Architect's grave dance a genuine embrace of the void, or is it merely the first step into a deeper, much more permanent despair? If the Architect submits, do they win cosmic freedom, or do they just become another fractured piece of the shattered mind's misery? It really makes you rethink the nature of our own mental fortresses and what actually happens when we let the walls fall down. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the Explainer. Keep questioning those logical cages, and I'll catch you next time.